Hey everyone, welcome to 8 Rice Up. I'm your host, Ryan Rice, and this is my beautiful wife, Maida.
Hi, so glad you could join us.
Super excited about today's episode. What we're going to be talking about today is I didn't sign up for this. Very simply, right? A lot of things happen in life where it's definitely unexpected, definitely doesn't go the way you think. And we just want to kind of explore that because whether it's, starting a job or, you're into something and the job description changes or a spouse passes away or whatever happens, you get into it and it doesn't go exactly the way you think, right?
Right, right. No, life can change in an instant, and it's a 180-degree change, and all of a sudden you're like, I did not sign up for this. What am I gonna do?
Right.
And you're all of a sudden you're in the position whether I quit or I keep fighting.
Yeah. So we just wanted to dive into a few things. Let's get into first your experience with Liam, your second child, in the NICU, right? Like you went through 10 years of infertility and then finally got pregnant with Liam, right? You went through in vitro and stuff, but he was born at 24 weeks. And it was definitely one of those, I didn't sign up for this moments, right? Because it like everything that could go wrong, I swear it did go wrong with Liam coming out, right?
Right, everything did go wrong,
Yeah.
and I was pretty angry. I was pretty angry because I didn't think I deserved it. I was angry at God or angry with God because I didn't think that after 10 years of infertility, I was going to have to go through something crazy like having my baby at 24 weeks and actually I was 23 weeks when I went to the hospital, and they told me that my cervix was 100% open and that they couldn't do anything. And for me that didn't make any sense because after 10 years of infertility you're thinking, oh, finally God has heard my prayers, and here we are having this baby, and all of a sudden it's like we can't do anything for your baby. And they asked me the question of, so he needs to come out, do you want us to save him, or do you want us to just let him die? And I'm like, why would you even ask that question?
Right. Like what a crazy thought, right? You go through all of this infertility and you're like, oh, I finally have my baby. You get to the hospital and they're like, Maida, he's going to have a lot of complications. He's going to have a lot of problems. They told you actually, he probably wasn't going to talk, was going to have a hard time walking, will never run, right? Like he was, they were saying he probably was going to be a vegetable, like
Right,
really like
right.
no quality of life whatsoever. So do you want to keep him or we don't have to? And I thought, what a terrible question that is, right?
Yeah.
Why would you not want to keep him?
Yeah, and I would have so many doctors just come to me, give me different opinions, and they all wanted to get Liam out.
Right. Early.
And early, because I was 23 weeks. And I said, I am not getting him out. I'm not pushing my baby because they wanted me, do it all natural. And I said, I'm going to keep him as long as I can. And they're like, well, if you can keep him to 20, up to till 24 weeks, then we can kind of help him. But if you give birth now, which they wanted me to, then they were not going to do anything. And that was kind of like their policy at the hospital, is that
Right.
they don't save babies because they don't live. They think they don't live. I think they do. If a miracle happens and you have enough faith, and it's all up to God. But yeah, I was pretty devastated.
Okay. When you get to that point, Liam eventually came out. He went through, there was surgeries and all sorts of things. But eventually, I mean, he came out and he's healthy. He's happy. I mean, he's 4. He's turning 5 this year. He's a happy kid. But along that journey, you hit that point where you say, I didn't sign up for this one. Like I finally got my baby and oh my gosh, how do I keep going? Right. For you, what was that driving factor that helped you not give up and say, we're going to keep going with this?
I believe that for me, it was that I saw such a little human being because he was only 1 pound, 6 ounces, 12 inches long, fighting so hard for his life. And even though the doctors were always saying negative things, this baby kept fighting and fighting and fighting, and it taught me a lesson that no matter how small you are or how small you're feeling or how weak you're feeling, that you are strong and you can do it. And so it taught me to be patient and it taught me to have faith.
Awesome. And I'm sure that translated really well with the next baby. You were pregnant with Ty. Tyler died, and then you broke your leg. And there was again, there's a moment in there.
Yeah, with that one, I was so angry. Oh my gosh, that didn't make any sense to me. I mean, I thought really like my trial in life was gonna be Liam. I said I passed my trial, and I passed it well because it was 6 months in the NICU of
Right.
he may live or he may die today, kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I passed my trial. I learned a lot of patience. I learned to have faith, and I just learned to rely on the Lord a lot. But with Ty and my husband dying, that to me was like a slap in the face, just because we were finally able to complete our family with our three boys. And for me, it was like an exchange. Here, you have your other baby, but your husband's gonna die, kind of thing. And it didn't make sense to me.
Right.
With that one, it was really hard. I'm like, what do I learn from this? How do, because you're not supposed to raise kids on your own. I don't think we're meant to be moms on our own. I think we're meant to raise kids having a dad and a mom. And it didn't make sense to me why God took my husband away when I was finally able to complete our family.
Right. And I think you said something really interesting there. The questions we ask ourselves are super, super important, right? If you're trying to understand, it's important to get that understanding, but more important than getting that understanding of why something happened is just accepting that it did, right? And that's when real healing comes into play, is when you accept, oh, okay, this is what happened. I don't understand it. It makes absolutely no sense, but I accept that it happened. How do we move forward from here? And then the question is, well, what am I learning, right? What is this teaching me? Because the option is either you move forward and you learn and grow, or you give up and die. And that's just in life, especially with a young family and kids that rely on you, that's not really an option, right? And we've touched on that briefly, where you did hit that moment where you had the pills in your hand and you're like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is unbearably difficult. I can't move forward.
That was way too much.
Yeah.
That was way too much all at the same time. For me, that was inconceivable. Like, I did not understand many things. First, the death. Two, the breaking my leg. And the third one, losing my company. And I was like, so what is the point of this? How am I even gonna live? How am I even gonna raise these kids? I didn't think I had the strength. I didn't think I was enough for my three kids. And I think back then I didn't even know what I was gonna believe in anymore, because I was like, there's no way that after being such a good person and you start judging yourself and being harsh on yourself, you're like, why is this happening to me? Like, what did I do? Like, I think I'm a good person. And it's not about if you've been good or not. It's about how are you going to manage those trials? What are you going to do? Is it going to make you bitter or is it going to make you better?
Right. And that applies really with everything. It's not just massive devastating events that happen in your life. Like, if you get a job and it's not exactly what you think, and right, they change your job description or whatever, you can be like, I didn't sign up to do this and that and the other, and you can kick and complain and scream and yell. Or you can say, well, hold on, what am I learning from this, right? As long as it's a healthy environment. But you could say, how do I turn this into a positive and make the most out of it, right? Because really the only thing we take with us and through life is our knowledge, right? The things we're learning. And so if we truly learn something, that continues on with us in life, right? Like I've talked to a lot of people. I've talked to people that wealthy people that they're up at the top And if they, they say, you know what, if you take everything away from me, take all of my wealth, take all my connections, take everything, I can come back, right? And I'll build it better and faster than last time because of my knowledge, right? So the same thing with grieving is you're going through grief, you're going through pain, but it's like, you know what? That's life. It's hard. Things happen. But this is to help you grow and to learn and say, you know what? I can do it better. I can come back bigger and stronger this time, right? And that's something beautiful, I think, that you and I have, is because we both had a spouse pass away. We had an amazing life before, right? We loved our life, we loved our spouse, we were happy. But now that we've gone through that, we can say, okay, we know how to deal with this. We've done it before. Let's build bigger and better this time.
Right. Right. And it's true. I mean, I think that the most beautiful thing of grief is that it does teach you to be a better person. It does teach you to accept. And I think everything else that happens in life seems really, really small compared to grieving a spouse.
Right.
Or I don't know. I've never. No, I lost three kids. I was gonna say I've never lost a child, but I've lost three babies. I have three miscarriages. And I'm thinking, there's nothing in life that can happen that can compare to the amount that amount of pain. At least with me grieving my husband, and getting married doesn't mean that we've lost that love for our previous spouses.
Right.
I think that we have the capacity to love even more, and that we have a bigger heart to love others, right? To help hold that space. Because I love my husband and I love you. It's different love, but we're just able to love at a higher capacity.
Right.
And we're able to understand others and empathize with others in a better way, and to connect with others in a more deeper way. And I think I wouldn't be the same person I am today if I wouldn't have gone through everything. And I believe that grieving, it makes people, if you let yourself learn from grief, then you will definitely come out as a very, very strong person. I don't, maybe in the moment it might not seem like it, but you learn to accept, and you learn to somehow continue with life and move forward as a different person, as a more refined person than what you were before.
Right. I think a lot of life comes down to just accepting where you are, like the reality of the situation, and moving forward. Like I have a friend that does extreme camping. He was up in Alaska doing this hunting trip, and it's freezing. He was absolutely freezing. They were getting frostbite, and he's like, you know what? I would just wake up and say, I guess I'm doing cold today, and accept it. That's where you're at in life. If you wake up and you're like, I guess I'm pissed off today, I'm upset, that's life. That's where you're at. That's where you are in the grieving process. And that's totally okay. Right. Or, as you're moving forward, you just realize, just be honest on 100% where you are and say, this is where I'm at, and accept it. And then you can figure out where you want to go.
Right. And for me, it was really hard at the beginning, right? Like the second day of my husband passing away, just waking up that morning was the most horrible day ever. And asking myself, like, I did not sign up for this. Like, this is ridiculous. But then throughout the week, as the days went passing by, I understood that God has a bigger plan for us than what we have for ourselves.
Right.
Nothing in life happens the way we want it to. And I understood that God has such a perfect plan and such a perfect love for me and for each one of us, that he knew that my late husband was going to be able to do something more than he could have done here in life. And over there where he is, because I still believe that he's alive, I believe that he's able to help me more in a more, what do you want to call it? In a different way. He has more capacity to help me, especially with my oldest son, who's 15 and is struggling a lot, and with my other two. And for whatever is coming for me, I think he's gonna be able to help me more from the other side than from this side of life.
Right.
And I was able to understand that, and that's what gives me comfort, is that God is not gonna give me anything that I can't handle in life. And if I grab that knowledge, knowing that God knows me and He knows me personally, He knows me by name, and He knows what I can handle and what I cannot, then it comforts me that He's not just gonna give me something that He knows that I'm not gonna be able to handle. I know I can do it. I just have to have the right attitude, and I have to have faith that everything is gonna be okay.
Right. Well, a lot of that comes down to just having that broken heart and a contrite spirit, right? To have a broken heart, it has a negative connotation of I'm sad, I'm miserable, like, right? Like you break up with somebody and you have a broken heart. But it also, like when you have a broken heart, you're humble. And that's when real change happens. Because you hit that point again where you just accept where you're at and you say, I don't know if I can take any more. Here's where I'm at. Lead me, guide me, show me what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's when you can make real progress and change for the better. And I think that's what God wants us to get to, is He says, I know you think you know best. I know you have a plan for your life, but I have a better plan. I know what I want for you. Right. And yeah, just getting to that acceptance where you say, okay, I don't know what's best for my life. Help me figure this out. That's where things actually happen. And yeah, it's hard because everybody's struggling with something, right? And it's funny, the people with the biggest smiles are suffering the most.
Yeah,
right?
and that is so true. That is so true. I had people before asking me, how do you deal with everything? Because you look happy, and I'm like, I'm dead inside. But no, it's just that faith, right? I think it's that faith that you have in God that really does make you move forward. It's like somebody's pushing you, and you have angels on each side of you, and angels are helping you. And I think you and I have two angels, one that is 6'7", and then one that's 5'2", that are helping us. And I think our children can feel them. We feel them. I feel my husband, sometimes your wife, and we're being helped in a divine way on how to raise our kids.
Right. And so it's just important to recognize that you're never alone. You're never truly alone. God's not going to abandon you. It may feel that way. It may suck along the way, but you're not alone. God knows perfectly what you're going through. He knows exactly what He's doing. There is a plan. There is a purpose. And this whole thing that you're going through is to help you become better, right? Because He needs you to be somebody that you have to go through this to be. This is the only way you can get there. So
yeah, and honestly, like, I don't want to go back when this life is over, and I believe that one day we're all gonna be judged. I don't want to come back and say, I don't want God to ask me, what did you do with the 3 children that I gave you, or now 6 children, because I wanted to have more babies, right? I was 10 years with just one kid, and I wanted to have more babies, and He finally gave me the babies, and then took my husband. But I don't want Him to say, I gave you the babies you wanted. What did you do with them? And on top of that, I gave you the 3 that you lost. I gave them to you in a different way. What did you do with them? I don't want to say, I gave up, I quit. I want to say, you know what, I raised them the best I could, and I tried my best. And nobody's perfect, and He knows that. But as long as we're trying and we're striving for better, and we're trying to be there for our kids, and we're trying to better ourselves and be better people, and help others and whatnot, I think that's enough. And we are enough. And when we're feeling like we're not enough, that's what the adversary wants us to think, is that we're not enough, and that maybe God doesn't love us, or that God's not, not with us in those moments. And He's always there. We're just, when we get into that depressive mood of pure darkness, you're not able to feel that God is with you, but He's always there. And all you just have to knock, right? You just have to pray and ask Him for help. And there's never been a day where my prayers have not been answered. They all have been answered all the time. And I don't know if for me that's, no, I know for me that's a big blessing, because I'm not a very patient person. But I know for fact that he's always there for me, and that I'm not alone in this, and nobody's alone in this, and that he has something better, and he knows that something is coming for us, and because he knows the way, he's just preparing us and refining us to be better, capable of doing whatever is coming for us, whatever is coming for in the future. I think you and I are being refined for sure.
100%. One point I do want to make, and I think this is important. When you're grieving, it's important to feel whatever you feel. That's okay. The emotion you have, that's okay. Go through the tunnel, just experience the emotion you have. But be very careful about the choices you're making about yourself. I remember specifically, a couple days after Asia died, I had a dream where she wanted to get pregnant before she passed away, and we were talking about it. And I had a dream that she came and told me, "Hey Ryan, we're pregnant." I was all excited and stuff, and then I woke up and I was like, "Oh yeah, she's not pregnant." And then I had another aha, and I was like, "Oh no, she's dead." And it felt like this cold blanket just came and covered my entire life at that moment. Everything just went cold. And in that moment, I made a bad decision. I felt, which is good, but I made a bad decision. And I said, I hate my life. I don't want to go through this, right? Again, I didn't sign up for this. And that was an inappropriate choice, because that reflects in everything else I did. And so you go through life and you're like, man, I hate this. I don't want to be here. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to, and it's hard. And so I had friends that helped me very quickly evaluate that and say, oh, I made a choice, and that was the wrong choice. Be very careful about what choices you're making going through this process. You can be angry. You can be depressed. You can be sad. You can say, man, I don't want to do this. But don't make the choice that you hate your life. Don't make the choice that I hate God now. You can be mad at God. I was mad at God. You were mad at God. That's okay. That's just the emotion. Feel it. But I know God loves me. I still love him. I still love my Heavenly Father. I know He cares about me. Just be very careful about the choices you make.
Right. Just be very careful with the words, right? Because you're listening.
Right.
You're actively listening to yourself, and that's how you, depending on what you say to yourself, that's how you act. Yeah. But you said that the way that you cope with it was by going to the gym, right? Like you were telling me, was like the motion creates emotion.
Right. Motion creates emotion. So anytime I have an emotion that I don't like outside of grieving is kind of its own weird thing. If I have an emotion I don't like, I get up and move. I get active, because motion creates emotion, right? Like if I'm feeling down and depressed and I'm like, man, I'm having a rough day, I get up, I move around, I walk around, I do some jumping jacks, something, and very quickly that emotion changes, right? That's why it's important not to make life-altering decisions solely based on emotion, because your emotions change based on how what physically you're doing. So yeah, for me, a coping mechanism I used was I went to the gym and I beat the crap out of myself. It was fantastic, right? You lift heavier than you can, and yeah, you go to failure and you're like, oh my gosh. And then you come home and you're exhausted. And it was good because the endorphins kick in and you're like, oh, I feel better. I'm depressed and I'm super sad, but I don't hate life. I can do this, Right. That's the biggest thing I did was I went to the gym, and then I did force myself to go back to work. I was doing sales. So I was spending all day on the phone talking to people, which I did not want to do, right? You don't want to talk to people. That's the last thing I wanted to do. But I forced myself to do it. We're going to do this, and that I accepted right where I was. I was like, you know what? This is where I'm at. We're going to talk to people.
You would make phone calls and then you go to the bathroom and cry.
I would, as odd as that is. Yeah. I'd be on the phone with people and try to be all happy and, hey, let's talk about this. And then I'd get off and go cry for a minute. I'm like, okay, let's get it together, but that's, yeah. Everybody at work was like, how's Ryan doing? They didn't want to ask me. They asked my coworkers, and they're like, how's Ryan doing? They're like, oh, he's good. And I'm like, you don't know. I'm I'm dying inside. But you
And that's
cope
how
with
you
it the best you
feel.
can.
That's
Yeah.
just how you feel, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I something that I did is that I started driving around. I would get all my kids, my newborn, my 2-year-old, or my 1-year-old back then, and my teenager, and I would just drive around with nowhere to go. And that was for me like living life. That was for me, that was calming. It was just driving around with nowhere to go, or and driving around with nowhere to go because I couldn't walk. So I would drive. It was a good thing that I broke my what is it, my left foot and not my right one. So
So
it
you could
was
still drive.
so I could still drive.
Thank heaven you didn't have a clutch.
No, no. Otherwise, that would have been horrible. But that's what I did. And then when I was okay walking, that's when I started going to the gym too. I started doing CrossFit, and I had to be really careful. But oh my gosh, I did feel so powerful for that moment. And I would wake up at 5 a.m, and it was like the best thing ever. But at that moment, like in those moments, you really don't want to, and you feel like you can't do it, you can't deal with it anymore. Especially when you're a single mom and you're dealing with grief, and you're dealing with sick kids, and you're dealing with a newborn, and you're dealing with breastfeeding, because that's a lot of work. And you're like, and I'm alone. How am I gonna do this? How are you gonna have the strength to take care of yourself? But if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else.
Right.
So I did wake up at 5 a.m every day, went to the gym, and I feel so empowered. And I would put music, or like a good Latina that I am, I would clean the house with music, and then do my salsa or my cha 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 or whatever. And that's how I coped with it, and it helped me. If I stayed in bed, that was when all the negative emotions would come.
Yep.
But if I got up and did something, then I was okay.
No, 100%. Motion creates emotion. So, no, self-care is super important. So hopefully there's some good tips for you guys. Get up, move around, do what you need to do, and just start feeling better. But definitely, accept where you're at, and let's move forward.
And know that you're not alone.
You're not alone. There's a plan in this.
There's a better plan.
Yeah. So we'll catch you guys next week on 8 Rice Up.